રાજકોટ પંચશીલ શાળા ખાતે યુનાઇટેડ કિંગડમના વિદ્યાર્થીઓ આવી પહોંચ્યા હતા, જ્યાં તેઓએ ભારતીય સંસ્કૃતિ વિશે માહિતી પ્રાપ્ત કરી હતી અને સ્ટુડન્ટ એક્સચેન્જ પ્રોગ્રામ અંતર્ગત બંને દેશોની આપ-લે પણ કરવામાં આવી હતી.
And it's been a wonderful experience, and I think the things that strike me most are the things which we have in common, which is about looking after the interests of the students, good teaching, and trying our best to make sure they achieve to their true potential.
So what are the similarities have you found in the Panchsheel school, as well as you are also been working and you are seeing the educational atmosphere in London?
It's about the care for the students. That's paramount. They place a great emphasis on looking after the students and making sure they get a good experience. It's quite clear that they have a lot of respect for the teachers in the school, and it's the same back in England. That's what we try to achieve. I think that's what we do reasonably well.
Ma'am, what will you say about Rajkot especially?
I think Rajkot is, in fact, I wanted to just go back, I'll tell you a little bit, because we started this program 10 years ago, and I worked with the British Council, and on our first exchange we brought a number of teachers here, and a number of teachers from the government schools here went to the UK to visit our schools, and the idea was to promote education and people to learn from one another. So it was about teachers learning from one another, and then eventually going on to students exchange and getting students to learn from one another. And unfortunately it didn't go the way we wanted it to go at that moment in time, and I think you need to have a visionary, somebody who has a vision of what education should look like. And we were very fortunate to have found DK sir, who had that vision to know what the future of education for young people is. And because of that, and the support from Yogi Raj with them, they were able to then, we were lucky to have met them, and then because of that, we've been able to take it so much forward. And now we have a number of schools who visited the region, and they have learned so much about education here. Isn't there so much? And to me, one of the greatest things that young people learn when they come here, and the greatest thing I think teachers learn when they come here, is the fact that our young people here have such high aspirations of what they want to do and where they want to go. And if you look at the range of education that you find here, you find that every child wants to become something or do something in their life, and parents are there to promote and support them, and I think that's important. And for Panchsheel, I think the most important thing has been that they want to grow children as global citizens. They don't want children just to be educationalists who are very good in their education, who are reaching their 99.9%. That's not just what they want. What they want them to be people who in the future will be able to go and study anywhere in the world, students who will be able to go and live anywhere in the world and be able to adjust to that lifestyle. And I think that's very important and very an important part of education. That's what I believe, and I'm very lucky to have found it.
First of all, I'd like to know that what actually British Council is, because there is awareness to be created about the British Council, but yet not in Rajkot it's been created.
Yes, I think that the British Council has a role, but it has many roles. And I think sometimes what happens with the British Council, if the role is not properly developed and understood, then what happens is you get negative vibes. So people will sort of say, they haven't done this or they haven't done that. So I think it's about the support you've had and the experiences you have that's important. Now, where I come from in the UK, I'm an ambassador with the British Council. So as an ambassador with the British Council, at this moment in time, for example, the government has given over £1.5 million, and they have said that this wants to be used for a certain group of young students who they feel would benefit from going abroad and learning about other cultures and about other education ways of working and so on, which is why the school applied, Alexandra applied for this funding, they received the funding, and this is how they're here today. And I've actually just been speaking to the British Council this morning, and they were asking how the experience had been, and they want to know. And there's a an opportunity that this might continue to. And that's what the role of the British Council is, for young people all over the world to experience and learn from one another and become global citizens in that way. And I think, again, because I've been here for 10 years, so I know the starting of what it was like and how the British Council originally, and then, you know, sort of what's got. But certainly what I would say, there are very, very positive reasons and positive, you know, you can get a lot of positive gains from joining and having these international links, and we're very keen to develop these international links. So if there are schools that are interested and would like to have, then certainly I'd like them to get in touch with us.
Yeah.
Being here, and DK Sir and also Yogi Raj have been really good in welcoming us here. In the last, I'm a teacher myself, and in the last 3 days I've learnt a lot about the culture, about how they teach here, and I think I've benefited from that, but I think the teachers here could also benefit in the future from maybe sharing some ideas about learning and teaching and outcomes and how to get students to achieve more. Because you know, I felt as though there is a lot that we can work on together. Secondly, I like to say that my actual parents came from India, and they were actually from Jalandhar, but their roots were in India, and they did eventually move to Pakistan after independence, and they only spent a short time in Pakistan, but then they moved to England, where I was born. So maybe I think it's made me understand where my values come from, because they come from my parents as well. And I think most of the children in the school have the same values. Education is really important, and nothing is impossible. My parents didn't have a very good education, but they had a very successful and comfortable life in England. And then I'm the result of that. So everything's possible. And these children, they've probably got dreams. They want to maybe want to study in England, go to university, but nothing's impossible. Everything is possible if you work hard for it.
Ma'am, what would be your suggestion to enrich the education system of India? What would be the reason, a point, how you can enrich the education system of India?
I think it's about, again, being aware of teaching styles in other countries, how we teach, how we get the best out of students. So it's about assessment, how we assess students, achievement, high grades, how to achieve higher grades. And I think we can share that globally.
Could I ask each our children is to think outside of the box? And one of the issues at the moment is that when education was for a purpose, so at that moment in time it was to become doctors or accountants or lawyers, etc. But now things are becoming more, if you think about ICT, if you think about robots, etc., the way the jobs are today, the job market is totally different to the job market that was 20 years ago. And the skills that you require today, the young people need different skills. And they're the skills we should be teaching our children so that they work on the kind of jobs, on the kind of roles that exist today. So it was fine when we were trying to prepare them to become the accountant, the lawyers, the doctors, etc. But now we need to be preparing them to do different kinds of roles in society. And for that reason, I think education needs to change. And although I'm well aware that slowly it is changing, I'm also aware that many times even the teachers themselves find it difficult with this challenge when they've been doing it 20 years to suddenly find that they have to think out of the box and do something totally different. And I was talking to some teachers through the British Council. I was working with a group of teachers. And one of the things was we said that children needed to get the opportunities to question.
Exactly, that's very true, ma'am.
And the teacher said, we haven't got time for questions.
And that is the biggest limitation, of India and the Indian students. In India, we are just about to learn the theoretical knowledge.
Absolutely.
We are not even getting the practical knowledge.
Absolutely.
Exclusively Panchsheel.
Yeah.
the students from the Panchsheel are getting many of the
They are
good
getting
exposures.
it, absolutely. They are getting to ask the question, and this is why I say that these students will become global students, because they ask the questions, and anywhere they meet someone, anywhere they will be able to think outside the box and think, so and so came and that happened, so these might be able to, there's lots of different ways of thinking. But I think generally, if you look at the wider sort of communities, I would say this is the only school in
Of
Rajkot.
course, yes.
I don't think there's any other school that does, which is a shame, because what it does mean is we educate our children for exams, but we're not educating our children to be human beings and living in a society other than those children in Rajkot.
Ma'am, I'm not at all criticizing the convent school, but
I
in
don't-
respect, the students from the convent school of Gujarat are not at all capable of asking the question to their teachers also.
Yeah. And these are the skills we should be teaching our children. We should be teaching them the skills to ask the questions, not teaching them just theory and saying this is this and this.
Sure.
And then only then will they be able to use that theory in a different setting. And up to now, what I have seen, and I've been 10 years going, not just in Rajkot but elsewhere.
Focus is on teaching,
Yeah,
while it should be on learning,
exactly.
right? So the difference is because of this, right? In most of the schools like Queen Alexandra or St. Anthony's, where Panchsheel have a partnership, right? All the schools, mostly in England, they have focus on learning. So they assess the things or assess the teachers based on the learning outcomes of the students, not based on their oratory or their personality, right? For them, the learning is more important. Very few schools in India are actually focusing on that, right? So we should focus more on learning than teaching. Teacher may be very simple, but if we can make students learn better, if they can make students a great leader, then he's a great teacher.
Sir, what thing you liked in Panchsheel school?
What did I like in Panchsheel
Yeah.
School? Oh, lots. Crikey. What did I like in Panchsheel School? The students seem to behave very well. I think the standards of behaviour are very high.
Yeah.
I think they've got some very dedicated staff who care about the students that they teach. The students have very high aspirations to be, from the students that I've spoken to, things like doctors or engineers or accountants. So they have very high aspirations, and the students work with the teachers to achieve those aspirations.
About infrastructure?
Sorry?
About infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
of the school.
Or the infrastructure of the school. Some very large classes. In England we have classes of 12 and 13. I saw a class today of 44. But in the classroom, despite the fact there was 44 students in it, the standards of behaviour were very high. The students were attentive and appear to want to learn. There's a very strong desire within the students to learn and to extend their knowledge. The teachers must do very well to cope with numbers like that, because we don't cope with numbers like that. And the school's a very friendly place with a great atmosphere, and the students generally feel valued, I think, in being there and learning every day. And what we saw yesterday was a cultural show where they did different dances, different songs. And the standard of those dances and performances were very, very professional for kids who were so young. So they're obviously very keen to learn. The teachers are keen for them to learn. So I think the desire is very much there to make the students into better people.
Teaching style in Rajkot.
I think it's been mentioned before by the adults, but the teaching and the teacher and student relationship seems to be very strong. When we went in, all the students were very responsive to the teacher. They all stood up very politely, greeted us. They were all having a laugh with the teacher afterwards. I just think, the relationship seems to be extremely strong. We didn't see lots of teaching, like, per se, but the actual relationship between the students and the teachers seems to be brilliant.
What type of students are you expecting in Rajkot?
What I was expecting before I came, well, I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, it's just such a foreign place to all of us. We didn't really have any expectations, but I mean, when we got here, we were just overwhelmed with how polite and how open all the students were and the staff. I mean, I was nervous at first. I mean, it's pretty obvious you would be, but after about half an hour of just sitting with the students, you just feel very welcomed and like nobody's judging you. You just feel very comfortable in the environment.
You visited India. Why you like India? I just want to know from you.
I think personally, I think it's a beautiful country. Like I've never seen a culture like it before.
Really?
Like it's very different to our culture, but at the same time, it's very similar in the sense that the people that everybody was spoke to has been so welcoming.
Similarity in what aspects?
Like as I say, like the people, like they're very kind, like they're very willing to help you out. You know, they're just very like helpful, and like at the school, like all the students were talking to us, the teachers were talking to us. Like it's just the people are very nice, and it very goes hand in hand with the culture itself and like just what India is in general, I think.
What changes should India do in education sector? Anybody can
You tell what changes.
Sorry. I noticed that when we were in the lessons, as we mentioned before, that there's a massive focus on teaching, but not so much on learning, in that almost all of the weight is placed upon students, and it's a very, very stern environment. And while I think that's very good at sort of fostering a sense of sort of loyalty and community, I know for myself that even at home there's so much stress when it comes to education, when it comes to exams, especially for people coming from families who have to pay, I imagine, so much to be able to get such a wonderful education, that it might be wise to perhaps allow for more relaxed and perhaps free-thinking modes of learning. Though beyond that, I think it is a fair and seemingly quite efficient form of education. And Panchsheel School is wonderful, what I've seen.
Guys, I just want to know that you are from the United Kingdom. What type of education system in which you are right now studying? I just want to know about the education system of United Kingdom from you.
No, like it's not, I don't know, there's more of it's down to earth. The teachers are more down to earth. There's more of a relationship. There's, I think, not a breakdown of respect, but I don't know.
It makes it more comfortable, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's more comfortable. It's easier to learn because questions can be asked easier. Class sizes are a lot smaller, so you can get your words, and you can, if you are stuck, you know what, you can ask for help without 30 odd people, other people in the class.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's lots of one-to-one time in the lessons, so you often get a teacher coming around. You'd be set work to do, you do your work, and then the teacher would come round and check that you're doing well. And I think that personal one-to-one form of teaching is very helpful.
Well, we pick all our own subject as well, so that's a bit more focused towards
The point which you are right now telling to me would be the loophole in India, if I'm not wrong. Our students of India are open to teachers, as you've been visited Panchsheel school.
I mean, they did seem like there was definitely a relationship there. I mean, they were all engaged in the lesson when we went in. I mean, we didn't see lots of the lesson. We were just greeted very politely and talked to the teacher and were asked about futures of the students. But from what we saw, the teachers certainly had a relationship to the student.
Expect in India.
In India.
Yeah. I think the education system is brilliant. I think it is, but class sizes, I think our way of smaller class size is more effective, because one-on-one time, I think, is a big part of your learning. It improves your relationship with your teacher, and if you are stuck, there isn't a queue of other people also stuck. And it's like at home, Kosa is very supportive. She has a very specific way of teaching, and I find that works for me. So, yeah.
Some of the cleverest people I've ever met in my entire life don't have a single qualification to their name. It's just one measure of intelligence and people's capabilities. Things like exchange programs, immersing oneself in different cultures, are the way in which we can really improve ourselves as individuals. And it's about tolerance, it's about understanding, and it's about being able to be that global citizen. And that's the way forward Because as Vina pointed out before, the world is changing, and it's changing even more quickly than we think. And the skills that we need tomorrow, we're probably not even teaching today.
And you know, it's the values we need to be teaching.